Location, location, location. That's what we hear all the time, right? If you're gonna get a place, you gotta be in the right spot to get the right traffic to really come so you can make a booming business. Location, location, location. But what we're gonna talk about today is how do you get that right location? In other words, when you find the right spot and you wanna lease it, what do? Right? You found the perfect corner location in the best part of town on the perfect block. There's a for lease sign, there's a telephone number. You call it, the landlord picks up the phone, and what do you tell them? Hey, how much is it? Right? No, you gotta have a plan. You have to understand your position, have a plan, put it in writing, and be prepared with various points before you pick up the phone to call. And that's what we're talking about here today. Hey guys, I'm John Kokolakis, and I help small and micro businesses comply with the law and face their daily challenges so they can focus on growing their business. So today we're going to talk about a plan. And a plan as to what? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is you don't know what you don't know, right? And so first and foremost, you have to have a plan when approaching a landlord, but how do you know what to include in that plan? And this is why you need to have solid experts by your side. This isn't a game, or rather perhaps it can be a game, but it's not a child's game. You need to be prepared. Get yourself a commercial attorney, someone who's familiar with commercial leases, and if you're dealing with a real estate agent, make sure it's a real estate agent that deals with commercial properties, not residential properties. They're different worlds, right? Don't go to a family law attorney to negotiate your commercial lease. They may not know what they don't know, and you'll pay the price at the end of the day. So let's get right down to it. We need to have a plan. The first thing that comes to mind is rate, right? How much? So we're gonna look at our budget. How much can I afford to pay a month? How much can I afford to pay a year, right? Let's say, for example, we're dealing with $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $1,700, right? Here in New York, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month is not unheard of. And it adds up quickly. So we got to think of that in terms of budget, but then not just per month, but then we're going to think about the escalation. Each and every year, is it a fixed rent or does the rent increase? Many tenants think, okay, I'm paying $3,000 a month, and they think that's what they're going to be paying every single year. No, the landlord may say to you, $3,000 a month for the first year, but then it's going to increase every year. Increase, you say? Yes, increase. By how much? Well, it might be by 5%. It might be by 4, 3, 2. This is a negotiation spot. And this is where an expert will also help you understand and know what's the average rate in an area based on the times of what the landlord can get away with or what you can negotiate down. And that's in conjunction with other terms as well, but it's something you need to think about. Right? In addition to the rate and in addition to the annual escalation rate, we also want to think about the term of years. How many years? You're getting that perfect location. This is where your business is going to boom. You don't want to invest 2 years, 3 years, and then be told you have to leave. So you need an adequate amount of time, right? On average, you're looking at 10 years. 10 years is solid. It's hard to get more than 10 years nowadays. And landlords are actually starting to push that down to maybe 8 years. That's a little scary, right? 10 years is good. Options, which we'll get to in a second, are also great. But let's say we're dealing with a 10-year lease. Okay, so we say, okay, we're gonna look at $3,000 a month, 10-year lease, but each year when it goes up, what are we looking at in terms of percentage so I can budget that and understand moving forward. Also, as we discussed in my last video on types of leases, are we dealing with a net lease or a gross lease or something of the kind or a mixture of the two? And that's something that we have to think about because there's other expenses such as property taxes and insurance that will come into play. But I don't want to go into those in detail today. So then let's say we're dealing with the 10-year lease. The next would be the option to renew. We have a 10-year lease. The landlord doesn't want to go over 10 years. And what if you sneak in an option? Listen, landlord, okay, fine. 10 years, I understand, but give me an option. Give me another 5 years. If things don't work out, fine. If you see that I'm not good and I'm not a good tenant, fine, I'll be in default of the lease. You don't have to agree to the renewal. But if I'm good and everything is solid, give me another 5 years, right? Those extra 5 years are golden. Try to get them. The next level of negotiation is, what would be the terms on the extra 5 years? Are we dealing with a fair market? Are we dealing with a CPI? Are we dealing with a fixed rent? Or again, continuing the percentage increases each year? These are terms to negotiate, right? And we would take these in turn, but they should be part of our plan. Then we want to think about the assignment clause. So what exactly is the assignment clause? Well, it allows you the ability to assign over to someone your lease. Now, landlords many times don't like this, and many standard leases are going to say, no, you can't assign. This is dangerous. You want, at the very least, you want where you can request an assignment and the landlord cannot be unreasonable in saying no to the assignment. But let's say, for example, a landlord is very strict and says no to an assignment. Maybe you can carve out an exception. For example, well, why would you want an assignment? Well, I'm building up my business. I may want to sell my business, right? And so then we might be able to put some language in there saying, okay, no assignment unless it's part of a bona fide sale to a bona fide purchaser, right? And then perhaps we would be okay, provided the credentials are approved by the landlord, and we'll want to put some language in there also saying that the landlord won't be unreasonable, right? These key terms are very important that usually we don't think of them on day one of signing the lease, but they're very important to think about. Don't just think about today, think about where you will be, and you need to know your future, okay? Then we have inducement. Now, what would be an inducement? An example of an inducement is free rent. What if we can get the landlord to give us free rent? Well, why would the landlord give us free rent? Well, you know, he's giving me a big open empty space. I'm going to put in a beautiful restaurant in there. I'm going to spend a few $100,000 at the least to really get this up to par. I'm going to improve his property value, right? So at the very least, while that's happening, I have no income coming in. All I'm doing is bleeding money. Give me something, work with me. Maybe they'll give me 1 free month, 2 free months, 3, 5, 6 free months. And we can get creative as to where we put those free months. But think about it. At $3,000 a month, 6 months, that's good money. I'll let you do the math, okay? Then termination. Also sometimes I refer to as the back door. What if I want out? What if I have a 10-year lease and 5 years into it, things don't work well? Either I realize this isn't for me, I don't want to do it anymore, or maybe business isn't good and I want to get out of this lease. What do I do, right? Or what if the landlord, not per se snuck in a demolition clause, but it's not uncommon in New York for these commercial leases to have a demolition clause where the landlord can just, boom, cancel the lease, terminate the lease after giving you some adequate notice, whether it's 6 months, whether it's 90 days, because they need to demolish the building and build up. Or if it triggers upon a sale. This is tricky language that you really need to make sure that you spot it if it's there and you either negotiate it out or you negotiate some favorable terms. For example, they'll trigger the demolition clause, but let's make it mutual. Fine, I'll let you out, but you have to let me out. Or fine, I'll leave if you trigger the demolition clause, but you gotta pay me. So we can do an escalation. If you do this in year 1 or if you do this in year 8, so let's say you did it at year 5, sure, you could trigger it, but you have to pay me $500,000 in order for me to leave. And these are things that we need to negotiate in and put these into our plan from the get-go in case something like this comes up. And then we have contingencies. What if something goes wrong? Well, what could go wrong? Well, let's say, for example, we're opening up this restaurant, this pizzeria, and we're going to have beer and wine as well. So we need a liquor license. And the liquor license is key to our business because we make good money off beer and wine, right? Or full alcohol, for example. And we get the lease, we're moving forward, all the applications are in, and then the news comes. The news comes. Sorry, we cannot approve your liquor license. Now you're sitting there saying, oh my God, how am I going to run this business if I can't sell beer and wine? But if you had a contingency saying, if you don't get approved, if you don't get approved for your liquor license, then you can get out of the lease. We'll give you your money back. No harm, no foul. Sure, you're going to lose some money, right? Because every time you moved in to go in there was some money that was being spent, but you'll also save a tremendous amount of money as well. Now you may decide you don't want to trigger the contingency clause, that's on you, but at least you have the option in which to do so. So that, guys, is some of the things that you need to think about before you start to negotiate your lease. These are what we call issues that are covered. I can't talk about all the issues here today, and many times, many of my leases won't cover all the issues that are out there. You know, we have a lease that's gonna be 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 pages, but if I tried to cover every single issue that's out there, this is how thick my lease would be, and imagine the legal fees attached to that. It's unreasonable. So what we try to do is, based on our years of experience, is figure out what are the main issues that need to be in a lease based on the type of property and on the type of business and on the personal needs of our individual tenant or our individual landlord, depending which side of the coin we're on, right? And then those are the issues we need to address. We want to minimize those oops moments. Oops, did we cover that? Did you cover what you need to cover on your next lease, right? What we didn't touch upon today is protective measures that the landlord will put in. And those are with regard to guarantees, where they want you to personally guarantee. And I'm gonna talk about that on my next video. Coming up next week, we're releasing every Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the little bell so you can get notifications, be the first ones to watch. Thank you all for watching. This is John Kokolakis, and I'm out.